Well, hello everyone. This is Monty Hip from the Complimenter, and we are here today on Discovering the Fourth Place podcast. And today is not like any other day because today I have the incredible privilege. In fact, my right eye's tearing up even as I speak. Jeremy Johnson is on the podcast today, and I'm already prepared, folks. I'm ready that after you're done hearing Jeremy and we have this conversation today, you will say, like I've said many times, Jeremy Johnson is the solution to life. And it's just going to be fun to allow many of you to be able to experience that. And so, for the 4 million people that will respond immediately to this, Jeremy, I'm really sorry for the deluge of people that are going to be responding to you, but it
Yeah.
really is an incredible privilege to have you on the podcast today. We have history and we have just so many journeys that we've done together, but you are, as I would say, and as we say in Complimenter, accurate affirmation is important. You're a leader of leaders.
Wow.
And so it's just a delight to have you on the Discovering the Fourth Place podcast today.
It's great to be here. And I didn't think you'd be able to memorize the bio I just gave you, but you nailed it. So thanks for reading all of that just the way I wrote it.
Well, it was 23 pages. I felt it was a little long, but I tried to get that narrowed down. So I'm glad I did that long bio that you sent because you've done so many things. It would take a week to memorize it, but I tried.
It is an honor to be here. I have been just a major recipient of, I just believe, a gift of the relationship that I have with you. And so thrilled that you're doing this podcast, thrilled that I could be a part of it today. So this is exciting.
Thanks. Well, for those of you that have been joining in on our podcast, or if you're new today, Discovering the Fourth Place is what we're really chasing today. And we've found that there's 4 places that everybody is going to have to give attention to in life, and we're going to walk through that process. One of the places is your home. It's designed to be a respite, refuge. And so many people, they will go on vacations and go, I want my bed. I want my pillow. I want to just walk down my block. Home is an amazing place. Some have grown up in a home situation that I would say, in the word that I've used often, well, that's just craptastic. Such an incredible experience to be away from.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, whether it's been amazing or difficult, when it comes to your home, it really is important. So I want to begin today by talking to Jeremy about your home world. Tell me a little bit about your childhood, what it was like growing up in the Johnson household. And then, of course, I will need, because you're a storyteller, some elementary school, exciting things. When was your first date? Was that second grade or fourth? Big difference. I know your maturity level's way off the scale, so probably happened at 7. But tell me a little bit about your home life growing up, and then we're going to talk about your current home that you now are a part of. So tell me about home growing up as Jeremy Johnson.
I grew up in North Idaho, which, at the time, it's Coeur D'Alene. At the time, it wasn't as resortish as a lot of people think of it now, as a golf bastion and a snow skiing capital. It was a place where everybody went to church and everybody hunted. The motto was, what would Jesus shoot? That was kind of the idea of Idaho. And I grew up blue collar family. And I just had one brother, and we had a great time. And we didn't have a lot of money. We didn't know that, which created this sense of creativity in our minds early. Both my parents had to work, which would mean they'd lock us out of the house early in the morning. We had to play outside all day. We loved it. When it gets dark, it's time to come home. And we just had a great time. I was in church a lot. My parents are very disciplined and in church. Rules were a big deal. Fortunately, I had a big brother who showed me where all the landmines were of breaking all the rules. So I got to watch him experience all the consequences while I navigated my way through that maze. But it was a great childhood. Played a lot of sports. And in North Idaho, I was a really good tennis player, which again doesn't say a lot because it's North Idaho. It's like being a spelling.
And the 14 other people that were playing they just simply stood in awe of you, right?
Yeah, and I was in top 10. I was great. So played a lot of basketball, played a lot of tennis, ended up then going to Seattle to college. And from that point on, really Idaho became this nostalgic spot that I visit once or twice a year. And but it was a warm growing up, a lot of fun. And I realize now that not everyone experienced childhood like that. When I think of home and I think of family, some of my favorite memories, I just really a creative environment to just dream. My
Wow.
mom, she was she was my first best friend, and she would always believe in me more than I even believed in me. And she
You were
would
kind of like, oh, mom, you got to say that, but she
you
just
know
kept
what? She
saying
was
it.
so good at it. I believed her. I thought like maybe she's onto something. I didn't date a lot. This is going to shock you. Shock you. I didn't date a lot, and not because I didn't desire it. Now Megan Shields was my first love. It was just never reciprocated, and so I never had a mutual interest until I went to college. So, I dated a little bit, but it was awkward. And so I was somehow able to
Mhm.
escape high school, much to my dismay, without ever having fallen in love.
Wow. It's so funny to hear you say that because I remember back in the day when I was dating, is that you would write the note, hey, I like you. Do you like me? If so, check the box. And what you're telling me is you never got the box checked and the note sent back via their friend to your friend. So it was just
Um,
a lonely road.
Not a chance. I didn't have it. I don't know. I think I didn't know if Idaho was a trendsetter. So my silk shirts and my bolo ties, I thought for sure when I would walk briskly across the playground, my shirt would flow behind me. I It shocks me to this day that I didn't have more opportunities than I had.
I'm shocked. I don't even know what to say right now in response to that flowing silk shirt. So many things entering my mind. One of the things that I do know is that you really said something I think is really important, is that home was a place that you were able to create.
Yeah,
They fostered creativity.
yeah.
And one of the people that I would say, man, if I wanted a creative idea on the planet, and you and I've talked about this before, I call myself a creative strategist. You're just a natural creator, a first thought leader. And I always separate the difference between creativity and innovation. Innovation, you can take an idea and build on it. Creativity, you're a first thought leader. You're a first thought leader. So when you think about the home life that you had, and one of the things that I take away from that is that you were saying your parents were pastors in the ministry and church, that kind of world was a part of the journey. You now are a lead pastor amidst a host of other creative things you're involved in. Tell me what your home life from your childhood brought into the home that you now play out today. And I know you have two amazing daughters, and there's some incredible things that you have that you put in play in your home. But what went from your past home as a child into your current home, and how did you see that fleshing out?
I think I experienced early on that you're not shaped by the people that you believe in as much as you're shaped by the people who believe in you. For example, I had the posters of Ken Griffey Jr., Michael Jordan, Alyssa Milano, all on in my room growing up, but none of them believed in me, but I was shaped by the people that did, like my teacher, Mr. Sartain, by my parents, by my youth pastors. And and so when I had the opportunity to become a dad, one of the things that my wife Leanna and I, so we have two daughters. I always get nervous when someone says you have two beautiful daughters because I'm like, I wonder how many daughters total you have. And you just talked about the two, but we
Yeah.
only have two, and yes, they are both beautiful. But when they were really little, I took that concept of creating an environment where I never want them to go to school hungry for affection, hungry for attention. I wanted them to have a confidence that I believed in them, that we believe in them. So every night, little things would tuck them in bed since they were tiny, would give them butterfly kisses, except when they had pink eye. That's gross. But
Then I'm out. I'm not doing it. I
other
have
than that,
standards.
we were just like, man, this is though something we would do all the time. We'd look them
Right.
in the eye right before bed and would say, listen, you're a champion. And you know what makes you a champion? And they knew this because we did it every night. I'm a champion just because I'm me. And then I'd say, what do you have to do to be a champion? And they'd say, I have to do nothing, nothing at all. I'm a champion just because I'm me. And I drilled that into them, not just with our words, but everything we tried to shape, because I knew that one day they're going to be 7 years old. They're going to go through the cafeteria line. They're going to turn around in that awkward moment of, where do I sit down? And I don't want them to decide if they're a champion or accepted based on if someone makes room for them at a table, based on if someone approves of their clothing. And so I think that what my parents created for me, the sense of take risks, believe, share your idea, and don't worry about if it's valid. You are valid. I think I took that and created an environment where my kids were able to thrive. And when we did it best, we weren't trying to create mini versions of us. We were trying to create maximum versions of them. So I think
It's
that's
funny to hear you say that, Jeremy, because having had the privilege of doing some life journey with you and seeing you and Leanne not only do life and get married, and we've known each other a long little while, and to see you not only have your kids, but to actually know your grown kids actually live that out. So it worked, is what you're telling me. So when you're thinking about home, your past and the current, what's home life like now that you have two grown, children? What is home like shaping up like now?
a ton of communication. So it's family chat thread, and now we've added one because I've got a son-in-law.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and so we have constant memes we're hurling out. It's just constant communication, constant. We're creating intentional times for us to naturally develop relationship. So we have natural relationship, but we're bringing intentionality to it. So
I love that.
this is family dinner, family game night, and so we're just constantly getting together. We didn't want to be the weird parents who were the best friends for our kids, but we wanted to be the caring parents who were in the top 10. And as it turns out now that they're grown, we still all prefer to get together. Our favorite nights are when we're together, but every week we're going to all get together, and often throughout the week, every day we're communicating. But a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, a lot of mini golf, a lot of restaurants, a lot of chips and salsa.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, mini golf, chips and salsa, and laughter. But you know what's fun to watch? And I would just say this, everybody that's listening, it's so fun to hear you talk about your childhood, because I had such a unique home life. I had a mom who was an angel and a father that I would just say didn't quite reach that category. And as a result, I had to learn that your past can either haunt you or guide you.
Wow.
And what I'm hearing you say is it not only guided you in terms of the early days of your formation of your own identity and who you were, but it moved into a play to really help what currently is, as you were talking about your kids and that being together, the life in your eyes, Jeremy, literally is a tribute to your parents. And I would just say to anyone, man, your past can be amazing and it can be a legacy, or it can be a history that you're not going to repeat and create a future that just brings possibility. And I know you're doing that for a lot of people. So when you think about home, as we wrap up this segment of the podcast today, is there any challenge or direction that you would give to people when you think about home, this place that's to be respite, refuge, a place of ever, as you just said, we actually prefer to get together. Home matters. Is there any challenge or encouragement you would bring along that line?
I would say probably the number one reason why people don't take risks as parents is because they don't feel confident that they have what it takes. And I would encourage them. You don't have to have a perfect parent to become a better parent. And so start where you're at, and just give your kids an unfair advantage. And I think that's what my parents gave me. It didn't guarantee that I was going to be functional and stay out of prison, but what it did it did give me an unfair advantage. Or it's like, throw a catchable pass. As a quarterback, I just don't want it to be my fault that the ball got dropped, right? And not in a pressure way, but I can't control what my kids do with their choices. but I can throw them a catchable pass. And if we just do that, we take the stakes of perfection, keep those low. It doesn't need to be perfect, but we just need to have high communication, high bar of acceptance. And I just like the odds when you create that kind of climate.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for sharing that. And, I have two kids of my own, and Robbie and Ashley, you know both of them well. And one of the things that's most fun is each of them have two kids.
Yeah.
And I'm watching them lead in a way that just creates such joy, because all four of my grandkids are just these amazing humans. And I give such credit to my kids in regards to what they've taken. And I think probably one of the most meaningful statements is, hey, thanks for providing a home life for us that allowed us to want to take something into our future. And that was a big motivation for me. So I appreciate your insight on that. Well, the second place that gets a lot of focus, time, and attention. In fact, most people will say in the research and studies, work is a second place that almost always gets the best of your day and oftentimes the best of you. Yeah. So when you think about work, man, there's so many different paths that we could go down, but I want to ask you a couple of questions as it relates to work. What was your first job? How good were you at it? I can see your face as you're reflecting right now. You obviously dominated in that first role, but I want to talk about in terms about that. But I also will want you to, after you answer that, I want you to talk about what you currently love about your current career and what you're doing, past and current, and get rid of some of the ambiguity as it relates to those that don't know Jeremy Johnson. My first job shaped everything that I am today. I know that's going to come out. So what was your first job and what were some of your work experiences?
My first job was to be a parking lot attendant at a parade of homes, like a home show, right? And so literally I just hold a sign that told people where to drive. And that sounds easy, but it's a lot of pressure, because if you suck, you're replaced by the ground. They can just put the sign on the ground. So, and then I painted park benches for the city. I cleaned up the beach in Coeur D'Alene and Post Falls in the mornings, like, cleaning the bathrooms, which it's kind of like, that job was not a good job. And then I was a tennis instructor for years. I think I was lousy at all of them. Let me actually tell you one of my worst jobs. I worked for a restaurant for 2 weeks. It was a family friend who owned the restaurant, and my job was to do dishes. So first day I took this big old pot, cleaned it out. It was Mother's Day. A couple minutes later, the head chef comes out and says, "Hey, anybody seen my soup?" It was for the big Mother's Day lunch. And I was like, "Oh, I cleaned it out." And he was so mad. He was cussing at me, which, if you go back to the first part of this deal, that was not part of my home. So my second place was introducing me to some, interesting conversation. He was so mad at me. So then he was mad. He created more soup. By this time, I had spilled some grease on the floor. I swept it up. Didn't know you weren't supposed to sweep the grease. He came out about an hour later with a new soup, slipped on my swept grease, and spilled the soup everywhere. And I got fired from that job within 2 weeks. It was terrible. So I had a lot of bad jobs before I could finally figure out a job that would give me paychecks consistently.
That's absolutely fantastic. That was kind of a slippery slope, as it were, for you, I think you could say. It's fascinating.
I was a model for a dentist office. A lot of before pictures.
Oh, okay. So a dentist office model.
Just the before pictures.
Yeah, that's just not the after. It's interesting when we think about that. My first job, I had at a gas station and a tire shop.
Okay.
And at 14, I dominated both of those with such excellence. I could hardly lift the tires to a truck. Yeah. But if you want to talk about somebody that could pump gas, I knew how to give that kind of an angled smile in the mirror, that on the side, you could just look in there and make eye contact. I had that down to a science.
Stop it on the 00 at the exact dollar amount.
Oh, every single time, so, it was a huge win.
Yeah.
But when you think about your first jobs,
yeah,
I know now you're a leader of leaders. And I define leadership in a picture, not just a definition, many definitions of leadership. But one of the pictures that I paint for leadership, I believe you probably are in Webster's dictionary with your picture, and that is this. What's the picture of a leader? Look beside them and behind them and see if anybody's there. And when you talk about the future, they're interested in what you might have to say. I think, Jeremy, you've done a great job of becoming a leader of leaders that is bringing influence. In your current work, in terms of what you do, and a lot of people would never even know what a pastor does or what that's like. What would you say in regards to your work that some of the things that are most challenging in working with people, individuals? And because in essence, you're helping raise up people to a sense of identity, a sense of belief, a sense of focus and passion for their life. What do you see happening in the world to which you're now influencing today? What's that work like? And what are some of the things you're learning about and engaging with people? And then I want to talk about your creative side in just a minute.
Yeah. So, as a pastor, one of the things that you're known for is someone who gives a weekly message, right? And then helps people through the challenges of life, whether that's the great moments, the tough moments, the real tragic moments. And so all that is true. What's unique about my current role is we have 4 locations. We have a staff of over 50 people. And so my role now is a lot of organization, is a lot of big picture strategic thought and whatnot. But one of the biggest ROIs for my current role is to be able to speak in such a way where you can have thousands of people who all have their own journey and their own perspective, and try and get thousands of people to wrestle with a thought that makes sense to them and helps provide a clear next step for them. And so what I'm trying to do is provide an energy to get a group of people to walk in the same direction towards what we would agree upon and get to a spot where we agree is a common good for the community. So whether that's serving in our community, whether it's that's an initiative to launch something that will help, whatever. So that's what I do. So I spend a lot of my time trying to think ancient Hebrew scripture or ancient Greek literature, a book that is pretty, it's the same book every other pastor in America has, hopefully, that they go off of. And to be able to say, okay, what's something that might have a timeless principle? How do we make that very timely? And for people who don't really study ancient languages, how do I give them something that helps them understand this is something that I'm facing right now? This is an important issue. And I think my next step is my biggest step. So that's what I'm constantly focusing on, is how can we leverage the combined good of all of us, be part of something that can be created in a community that, in my context, feels like life-giving vibes from Jesus. And we would call it kingdom principles. And whether you are a follower of Jesus, whether you're a church person, or whether you're there for the very first time, trying to help you find your story in his story. So that's what I do.
Wow. I appreciate you sharing that. And you said something I think is really critical that I don't want people to slip by. 50 staff and thousands of people.
Yes.
So obviously there's something that you have really dialed in on in regards to work, and that really does have people beside you, behind you, and looking to hear you talk about the future. When you think about leaders that are out there working with people today, the work environment is very diverse. And there's just different attitudes, different definitions of what would create success in a work environment. When it comes to working with teams and people that are in your team, what would be some of the things that you would say, man, in the work world, if you want to get up every day and not have to dread going to work, you want to actually come into a place where there's life in your eyes, there's vibrancy, and you go, man, I'm actually enjoying being around these people. What would be some of the things you would say you've learned in working with your team that you would say, if you want work to be dynamic, what can you do personally, and what kind of an environment as a team can you build to make that possible?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that we want everyone on our team to bring to the table. One is a proficiency. You have to be good at what you do. Like, am I twice as good as what they pay me? That's what I want to shoot for. I want to feel like at the end of the day, even when you give me a check, you feel like you're getting a deal. So, and I want my team to feel like that. Like
Love
you're
that.
good at what you do. You're good at your craft. Second thing, you have to have a passion, and I think that comes from when I do this life comes out of me. But there's some things I do with passion that no one's paying me to do, like pickleball. I play pickleball with passion, but not good enough to get paid. And then the third thing, is I got to have a purpose, something bigger than me. My arrows are pointing out something bigger than me that's making a difference. So if I do this in such a way where life's coming out of me, I'm good at it and there's purpose. Now life comes into somebody else. So if I can figure out how to do the kind of thing that when I do it, it adds life to me. And when I do it, it adds life to somebody else. And I do it good enough where someone's going to pay me to do it. That, my friend, is the trifecta of work. Do something you would do for free, but do it good enough you don't have to.
I love that. And two things that you just said that I know here at the Complimenter, and you can go to thecomplimenter.com if this intrigues you, this podcast, and also about what I'm about to say. There's something about when people have a sense of mission and a sense of identity that connects to passion, intrinsic and extrinsic motivation.
Yeah.
And if you can find a sense of mission, man, there's something powerful about that. And I love what you said about, I thought it was such a profound insight. And I'm glad I shared that with you many years ago that you would bring this thought back. I'm sure it was the one that I gave to you. Now that I remember, maybe it wasn't me, but I sure felt like it should have been. That there's something about being able to bring something to the table that you're doing more than when someone would write you a check. You said proficiency, but when I work, that almost somebody would feel like that they're letting you down with the check they're giving you because you're just doing more than effort. One of my business partners, Brandy, I know that you know Brandy.
Yeah.
We call her third mile because in her work that she does, the second mile is the standard. The third mile is the other place that just separates. And one of the things we say at Complimenter is that if you can do something that intrinsically and extrinsically, it doesn't just make a difference, it makes the difference.
Yeah.
And those degrees of separation are powerful. What's made the difference in you in the way you go about work and leadership? And then I'll have one more thing I want to say about work before we go to the third place. What's been the things that have created the separation in you? Because you do have thousands. You do have multiple locations that want to hear and be a part of what you're putting into their life that's now showing up with evidence. And that's what causes people to come back.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you say?
Well, I just feel like one, I have a sense of freedom. Like I don't need my job, and I'm not validated by my job. That I have a confidence that I've got a purpose that didn't arrive when I received this job. So my career is different than my calling. My career is simply a canvas upon which I paint my calling. And so my career can change. And when I have that kind of freedom, I feel like when anyone talks, there's 90% of pastors shy or speakers shy away from the last 10% of the truth. That is what 90% of the people are begging someone to have the guts to say. And why we sometimes we don't go to that last level of truth or the last level of authentic challenge is because we're afraid. We're trying to keep our job. We're trying to keep control. For me, I've got this crazy curiosity and this sense of freedom that we're just gonna go for it, right? And part of that I really did learn from you. Is I remember I had a job and you were coaching me, and we sat down and we realized what's inside of me is way more important than just a job. And so follow your heart, even if it doesn't make sense in your head. And there's a logical way to do this. But just trust if you're true to your heart, everything else falls into place. And
Give me an example. Oh, sorry to interrupt you. Give me an example of that last 10%. Give me one example of that you would say, man, that fleshes out, because I think a lot of people go yes to point. Tell me one of those 10% that you say everybody. When you say everybody's kind of looking for that last 10%, what would be one of the things that you think from your angle of leadership and in regards to work, you would say chase that?
Okay, for example, in my setting, if I'm speaking on a virtue, a character, a principle from scripture, right? It's easy to talk about how our words matter and how we're challenged to love our neighbors, right? And whatnot. And it's easy to do that. And I can say that and it's not very offensive. And when I say, hey, some of us we're too busy to do that and we need to really evaluate our schedule, that's not that offensive. And we can all accept 90% truth. In a way for me to be able to say, if I don't look at my text messages in the last 7 days, and if I look at those text messages and I can't find someone who's of different ethnicity than me, different faith value than me, different socioeconomic status than me, then I'm missing the mark.
Gotcha.
If I can give you something so practical that you might really be in the crosshairs of application, then now nobody can walk away and just, they either have to say I'm guilty and I don't care, or I'm guilty, I'm going to change, or thank God I've stumbled upon this truth before and I'm going to keep doing it. But you've got to paint the picture so clear it's not nebulous to anybody.
You
So
know, it's funny that you say that, Jeremy. I really appreciate you bringing clarity as an example of that. I created a decision-making model called Questions to Live and Lead By.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we did in that process is that we learned in regards to almost any decision that you're going to make, you have to remove ambiguity. You have to gain awareness. You have to come to agreement. You have to take action. And one of the areas that's fascinating to hear what you're saying is that there will be people sitting in a leadership training, a session, or like in your, maybe some person that's a member of a congregation that you're a part of. And I have found you can agree in principle.
Yeah.
And go, absolutely, that is right. I'm not going to do it, but the principle is powerful.
Yeah.
So if I'm hearing you, you're saying that 10% is moving from agreement to action.
Yeah.
It really is saying that. I love that about that.
If I can't see it, if I can't picture it like something very specific, then I can't feel it. And if I don't feel it, I don't have the fuel to do anything by it. And so it's really creating, like identifying the obstacle, helping you see the obstacle, even if the obstacle is the mirror. And when I can see it, then I feel it. Because in principle, we all feel like we're the good guys. We're never the perp, right? Like we're always the good guy. And so if I can see clearly, man, this is a challenge for me. What is it like on the other side of me? And when you help me see it, it might tick me off. It might sadden me. But now I can do something about it. Otherwise,
it's funny as you say that. One of the things we learned when we were building that decision-making model is we found that you can know you should change, need to change, could change, want to change. It doesn't mean you will change, because there's actually a couple of ingredients. I think you're bringing a real good point to it, is that we found in our research that you can know there's a benefit to it, doesn't mean you'll do it. But when there's high levels of disgust and an unwillingness for something to remain the same, you will often act on it. And I hear you saying that. Now, before we leave work, two things. You are an innovator. You are a creator. You are an entrepreneur. What would you say fostered that place in you? And in that regard, the second part of that question is, in your entrepreneurship, in that innovation, in the leadership that you are, what's your pain point? What's your challenge right now in this area of leadership and work that you're doing? Those two fronts. What is it that caused you to be an entrepreneur, creator? And in your current leadership, what are the challenges? What are the pain points you're facing?
Yeah, I just feel like what causes this sense of creativity and trying to do timely methods, because I think it's obvious to most church leaders that most humans don't look forward to going to church. And so, like, especially the rise of COVID didn't change people's values. It just introduced people to another option. That means I can stay home. And staying home is a strong option. And so it makes me think, okay, if my job is based around getting people to move in coordination with each other towards a greater good in the community, what resources now can I create and not try to fight something that doesn't need to be fought? What things must be fought so that we don't leave undone something in our community that needs to be solved? And so it forces us to say, okay, what creative tools can we do to help people on the go? And then what creative ways can we communicate a message? Man, the greatest opportunity we have is people think it's not going to be applicable and that it's going to be boring. And that's a great opportunity. If you say this is going to be boring and we can show a creative way why this actually is timely and important and urgent, then I think it's an advantage. So that forces creativity. And the challenge of creativity is by definition, one of the way of leadership is I'm trying to move people in a direction they don't naturally want to go at a pace that they can handle. And so otherwise they'd already be there. And so what I'm trying to do is take you to a place that somehow you're not already going there. So I've got to get you to go there, but I can't get so far ahead you stop traveling with us. So that's probably the pain point, and that's true with staff. And it's funny, as innovative as we might feel we are as a church, for a church, we can be very churchy. Like we can be very stuck in our ways. And so it's always trying to make sure we change methods while grab something that's important and not value change. We don't value change to change. We value fresh to be able to be effective.
I love that. I love that line. We value fresh to be effective. And I just think that, and everybody that's listening, go ahead, write that down on your piece of paper, and I'll go, I am going to work to be fresh to be effective. I think it's a fabulous statement. And I know you've done that, and it's part of your creativity as it relates to your work. When you think about the work environment out there today in your world, and you mentioned one of the challenge, one of the pain points, staying fresh.
Yeah.
What challenges you as a leader today, just personally? What is your challenge? What's your pain? You go, wow, this is the thing I have to keep in front of me.
Well, for me, my biggest drive is, am I making the most significant impact with the time that I currently have? And I'm always aware, tick tock, what I'm doing right now must be important, and not in an arrogant way, but in the sense of an importance way. And so for me is fighting rhythm, creating rhythms that help us go forward while fighting the monotony that comes from created rhythms. Right? There's the difference between a rhythm and a rut. A lot of times is just purpose. And so I want to make sure I'm not creating the kind of rhythm that keeps me trapped into feeling this illusion of significance. And so I'm always trying to figure out, is what we're doing currently significant? And the moment someone else can do it, let them do it, and let me try and figure out what's the next significant thing I can do. So that's my
it. We say that in complementer, we talk about having mission, priorities, and goals. And we see people set goals all the time without a sense of priority and priorities without a sense of mission. So I call it the barrenness of busyness.
Wow. Yeah.
I got a checklist of activity.
Yes.
And an unfulfilled sense in my life that I'm going like, I am going in circles, and it's not like I'm bored, but there's this barrenness and busyness. So we try to help people think about, man, if you have a sense of mission and purpose, and then you set priorities, and then you set goals, it's amazing how that you can color that world to have such a level of impact. And I think you've really touched on it. I really appreciate your comments on that. Well, let's talk about the third place. Howard Schultz from Starbucks made famous in his book, The Third Place. Starbucks, he wanted to be a third place where people could come, gather. They don't have to stay. They can leave when they want to, but they have something there that's an environment and a product, coffee, which would create an atmosphere that people want to go. There's just simply something profound that happened with that idea. Everybody loves third places. I think you say you're a pastor of a congregation. I think a church, a congregation can be a third place. People can come and go. They don't have to go, leave when they want to. But there's also places like we have a vacation spot. We go there every year, or somebody will go, oh no, it's something new. And it's the beach, it's the mountain. Where are Jeremy Johnson's third places?
Yeah, I think it's a pickleball court, like for real it's my Friday morning text threads with the guys of let's get out there and we play and we just have a lot of fun. It's anywhere I can laugh, I can detach. I'm not thinking about the second place. Sometimes I go to the third place with the people from my first place. We'll go and we'll hang. My family will go and we'll do pickleball nights. We'll do game nights, right? We'll do these things. And for us, it's Florida. Anytime we can go and we can breathe a different scenery. It could be a road trip to Branson, as close to where I'm at, is anywhere we can get a change of scenery to just feel like it's unpredictable, to just breathe a different air. Remind us that we're not at the second place. For me, that's the third place.
I love that. One of the things that I've done for myself is that whenever you see me in a baseball cap, I am in a happy place. I love to create moments that make memories with people. So a third place is creating experiences that we do with people to where you just see the smile on their face. And I remember taking an individual up to Alaska and he had never caught a fish more than 3 pounds. And he caught a 58-pound king salmon out of the Kenai River. And he looked at me and he goes, "You have value."
Yeah.
And I love that you said, going back to what you said about your home, it was fun to hear you say, Jeremy, that your third place was a first place.
Yeah.
And for those people that are going, that they've had to overcome some history.
Yeah.
They've had to do, one of the things that we're finding is, I'd love for you to speak to this, how important third places are. You really do need respite. You need rest. You need to breathe. You need to take in fresh air and oxygen that comes into your life that you can just, and I've heard people say, that's my happy sigh.
Yeah. Yeah.
In
Yeah,
regards to the happy sigh moment, what are some of the things that you would encourage people to do? And how important do you see this in regards to the health and well-being of people to have third places that they make a priority?
I mean, I think it's huge because creativity comes from the margin. Creativity doesn't come from the clock. And while some people have control over their second place, to be able to create margin, most of us don't. And even if we did create it, it's just a different environment. When you get outside of the normal and you're not pressured to perform, and when you can play, it's amazing the creativity that comes to the surface. It's amazing the new ideas, the fresh perspective. So I think it's vital, and it's not a pressure. So I don't work for the weekend. I work from the weekend.
I love that idea. I love it.
I'm not trying to work, and now I need to recharge on the weekend. I recharge so that therefore now I got energy to work.
I just love the perspective you just brought. And I think that's a game changer concept of what you just shared, Jeremy. And see, this is why you have people like you on Discovering the Fourth Place. You're helping them to discover all kinds of places today. And that is, use the weekend to frame the next week of work.
Yes.
And I love the way to come at that. And I think it's just brilliantly stated. And one of the things that we've learned about the third place is if you don't have the third places in your life, your home and your work will be impacted.
Yeah.
We have found that in the complementer that is true, that you really do need well-being and play. And on the third place, you've mentioned something several times, and I pretty much feel like that if I didn't ask this question, you would probably get off this podcast and go, he really didn't do a good interview, because I haven't asked you, what is your best shot in pickleball? Because that's the one you want, where you make the shot and you just kind of look across the net and you go, I don't want to say a lot about it. That was brilliant. What is it? Go ahead and give us your ace.
I mean, I'm just gonna hit deep to your backhand, run to the net. That's my best shot. My best shot is your weak shot. So I'm just going to your backhand deep, and then I'll just roll the dice from there.
So it's seek and discover and then attack. Seek and
Oh
discover.
yeah,
and
man.
attack.
I want you to hear I'm gonna pound my feet on the way up, just so there's no doubt that your weak backhand shot better be well placed, because I'm right at the net hungry. So
I just wonder how many thousands of people today are now going to go grab their pickleball and go, I got from this everything that I just needed. Thank you. The third place is now
welcome.
discovered for me, because I'm going to be able to do that. Look, the last thing I want to talk about today is what I define when we came up with this podcast, Jeremy. It was about discovering the fourth place. And here's the definition of what I found between home, work, third places, vacation spots, activities that allow you to be fresh, as you were saying. But the fourth place, I'll give the definition. I really believe the fourth place is what everybody's chasing, and that's where passion and motivation collide with a determined resolve to experience the life that feels designed just for me. When you are in that place where passion, motivation, just really come into alignment, and you have this determined resolve to experience the life designed just for you, that's the fourth place. What do you see in the fourth place, where that passion and motivation has collided with a determined resolve in your life and leadership? What are you chasing? What destiny do you see being played out in Jeremy Johnson's life and leadership today?
Yeah, I exist to be a voice of encouragement to a generation of people. I mean, that's when I do that, I feel like it fits me like a glove. If I can be a voice of encouragement to anybody, and how I do that really doesn't matter. That I do that is so essential. I mean, and for me, that means for a season it was speaking at school assemblies because and some people would say, because I had been a youth pastor, and some people they would say, man, do you miss being in the ministry? And that's a Christian culture word for it. It's a slap from Christians. And it's their way of sounding spiritual, but saying something really mean. Do you miss being in the ministry? And I'm thinking, I wanted to punch him in the throat, because I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I am neck deep in doing everything God designed me to do. I'm locking eyes with 1,000 high school students every single day who are discouraged, and I'm helping give them hope. I'm being a voice of encouragement. Now, can that work in a church setting? Sure. But whether it's in a maximum security prison, whether it is in a school assembly, whether it's in a church congregation, whether it's in a business room, a boardroom, as long as I can bring a voice of encouragement to a group of people, it fits me like a glove. That's my fourth place, and I just got to do it. That's what I got to be about.
I love you say that. And as you were talking, I was just reminded, whenever we do mission statements for leaders, and you would remember this, we have a model of, like, we try to answer the question in terms of a person's life mission. Who do you want to be? How do you want to do it? What do you want to do? And it's funny to hear what you said. And that last part of what you said, that was your action plan. Yeah. And in my action plan, that's why I think our relationship is just so fun and natural. My action plan and my mission is to inspire others towards positive life action.
Yeah.
I love to inspire and challenge. I try to do that. That's what we're trying to do with even this podcast, to inspire and challenge. As we think about that, Jeremy, when we're thinking about this whole thing called life and leadership, and this journey that can just be an amazing thing sometimes, and sometimes you just want to bow your head and go, oh, I hope tomorrow comes sooner. Yeah. What would you say to people, and how you would challenge others to find their fourth place?
Yeah, I would just say, what are you uniquely passionate about? What are the things that what are the things that you're mad about? What are the things that thrill you? And there might be a connection. What is your story, and how can your story encourage somebody else or challenge somebody else? So I just feel like then you don't have to make something shape and fit you, because your story is you. So what part of your story can you use to boost somebody else. You know, and that's, I mean, that's how I got to really be someone who received a lot from you is for early on, I wanted to find people who in their past had success in areas that I want to have success in my future. And that was you, speaking, encouraging, school assemblies. So I'm like, what do I have to do to be able to learn from your experience so that I'm better positioned for my future? And I think anybody out there, what is it that you have seen? And in order to get it to a spot where it's your fourth place where you can do it, who else out there has past success where you want future impact, right?
Yeah. You know, it's really fun to hear you say that. And first of all, thanks for your kind words. That's really meaningful. I always reflect back on those moments, and even in the days we were together not too long, and I just can't even tell you just how life-giving that was to hang out. You're just one of those kind of people. But Jeremy, one of the things that I think you just said that I think is really important about the fourth place is that we really learned that if you want to live in the fourth place, you're going to have to pay attention to the current place. You're going to have to leave something, do something different. If there's some place they go, that's the fourth place. And a lot of times we just want something to be different without doing different. And it's a both and strategy. And I've heard you say that you're trying to do that. So when you think about passion and motivation colliding with a determined result, when you think about the future, what are you most determined, and it has a determined resolve in your mind, and regardless of what you're currently doing, what you may be doing in 20 years, what do you believe that you would challenge all people as we wrap this up today and go, if you want to find the fourth place, this is what I found I had to do to really lock that in. How would you challenge people to think about that?
I would think if I can figure out what my fourth place is, and I feel like, man, there's a good shot that would bring life to me and through me, then I got to figure out how do I make my fourth place my second place? Meaning, if I can figure out a way to do this full time, I must do that. So the only thing that prevents me from changing anything in life, changing location, changing careers, is a confidence that will this give me more opportunity to spend more of my time and impact in the fourth place. So wrestle with, what is your story? How can your story encourage someone else? How do you point the arrows out so your significance helps somebody else? And now, if you can figure out a way to spend more of your time doing that, even if it becomes your second place for a while, let your fourth place be your second place until it starts feeling like a second place, and then chase your fourth place.
Man, you just said that so perfectly. And, you know, one of the things I loved about what you've done is that you're helping people accomplish that, Jeremy. I really just want to challenge all of you that have been listening to this podcast today going like, I want to be best friends with Jeremy. Okay, we can make that happen for $49.95. I just think that there's a lot of life that you've offered today and solutions. I really appreciate your time. And for those of you that are going, man, it does make sense to me about these four places. If we can help you with that, man, make sure you check out thecomplimenter.com. It's been a joy to have you today, Jeremy. And we look forward to hearing from all of you and to be able to see what is accomplished in you and through you as a result of that. So thanks for being with us today.
Absolutely. Honestly, such an honor. And really, Monty, I know I've said this before, and I really mean this. You are one of the few people that God has placed in my life at the right time. And I really believe there's no way I'm doing what I'm doing without your impact. And so I know I represent a lot of people that probably feel that way, but thank you. Honored to be on your show today.
Well, your Starbucks card will be in the mail today. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
I love it.